All right, so we're back, jumping in. What? You guys
That was a hard turn from what we were talking about just a second ago.
that was the plan.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we got to somehow.
We do have to
wrangle
turn the
this
ship
in.
here. Okay.
All right, so let's jump back in. Here we were. Remember we left off in Ezra. It was kind of like the cliffhanger. I guess like he's come back, he's there, and he's all upset about, not upset, but he's like grieving
Yeah.
about what he sees with all the intermarrying and
Yep.
what that's done.
There's an interesting interplay going on because he's upset that the people are intermarrying because when in their history that has happened, they begin to follow the ways of other people and the gods of other people and not follow Yahweh. And so then you have, in this whole exchange, people begin divorcing their wives, which...
Casting out their children.
Yeah, and casting out their children, which the Lord never commands them to do. Like that's actually against what God has in mind for families and for human flourishing. So it is
and
a weird...
for outsiders.
Yeah.
And for even way back when we were reading about how they're supposed to treat women after war. I mean, you protect them, you take them in. So...
Yeah. Hey, God
so
doesn't...
This is a really interesting thing.
Yeah, God doesn't call for for divorce here. What he's really wants out of them is a right heart and to not be drawn other directions. And so rather than like cast off your wife and children, maybe just help yourself and them turn toward Yahweh.
Yeah.
And that's the better outcome here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I was reading just about that, what I read was that the words that's actually used for wives and for divorce aren't the same as that are used in the rest of the Old Testament. So is that what it says in there?
Yeah.
In your cheat notes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cheat notes definitely were like, whoa, this, yeah.
So they were even viewing this as like those aren't even really wives. That's not even real. Those are foreigners who are living with you. Cast them out. And just the context, because I think it is, we're just like, man, what are you doing? But it's just a reminder, Jezebel, all of Solomon's wives, and it was like he had these 700 foreign wives, and then he turned from God. It's not about ethnicity; it's about idolatry. Every time.
Yeah. Even recently, when we were going through Judges and teaching through, one of the last stories is the Levite and his concubine, she's called a concubine, not a wife, but then her dad is called this guy's father-in-law, and it's a whole. I think it shines a light on what you're talking about. They were having relationships that they viewed as less than God's design, husband and wife, which allowed them to, in their own minds, justify the way they were treating these people, and that, not part of God's plan.
Right.
Yeah, so it would say we would hold a view that when this says to put away all the wives and their children, this isn't like divorce like we know it today. So this is something different culturally that is happening.
I would say it's before that, the relationship itself. They're saying this is not real marriage in God's eyes. So I can just discard these people. And that's
right.
No, when you bind yourself in a sexual relationship and creating a family with another person, like that is part of God's plan for humanity, and it's to be taken seriously, not lightly. Yeah. There's not like different categories of that in God's eyes.
Yeah.
And this issue will continue in Nehemiah. This, the problem of intermarriage and what they should be doing about it.
So they didn't all get it squared away then, apparently.
No.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly.
Yeah. Okay, so, I mean, it's You
want a little bonus reading? You can read the book of Malachi, which is he's a prophet who his writing takes place at this time, and so it's another angle on these same
what's
events.
happening here.
Yeah.
Well, then we get this big list of all the priests who had these quote unquote wives, and then all the other people, and then just all the way down to just the rest of everybody.
Yep.
This is I think, outside of just sort of the weirdness of this and really sort of the inhumanity of what ends up happening is just this big picture of how are they going to be set apart? How are they going to be God's people? What does it look like when they no longer have the kingdom? They no longer have a king. They're surrounded by other nations. They are intermixing with other nations, and they actually have to be loyal to a king that's not their king. So they're trying to figure out throughout both of these books, what does it look like to be God's people? And they become identified more and more by their ethnicity and how they interpret the law. And you'll see that in Ezra and Nehemiah, and then you'll see it sort of work that out in the New Testament. So it really does matter for the rest of our story.
And I think the flip side, like some people, like when you read this and think through, it's like, okay, well, it wasn't their wives, so it's okay that they're like now casting out. It's like, okay, that still feels a little icky that we're going to make, a covenant with God according to according to the counsel of the Lord and of those that tremble at the commandment of our God, let it be done according to the law. It's like just this, like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like.
They're acting like they're following the law, and they weren't doing what was right. So they needed to rectify it, but they're rectifying it in a way that looks right. That's like a little legalistic, but also we see throughout Scripture that what God is actually asking of His people is for love and kindness and justice, right? And so they're supposed to be taking care of widows and orphans and
here
foreigners.
they're making more.
Widows, orphans, and foreigners. That's how it's defined, justice. And they're creating widows, foreigners, and orphans right now. And they're not taking care of them. They're casting them out. So it's really problematic.
Yeah, it shows that the exile didn't really change anything in their hearts.
Yes. And that they can be trying to interpret and apply the law and it not work out.
Yeah. But there was so many of them that it's like, okay, well, we can't settle this now, and so we're going to have to spread out, gather
It's a
all these
rainy
people.
day.
It's a rainy,
I know.
rainy day.
It's a great passage.
Yeah. So, they all end up, and then
I
it all
like that
gets
too.
squared away. All the people come and they figure it out how to
And
do it.
eventually there was none left,
Yeah. And then they just had the documentation of.
Yeah, it's just important for us to remember that there is this context of their culture, there's a context of where we are in the story, and everything we read isn't necessarily good. It's not necessarily what God is asking of His people, and it doesn't necessarily reflect what it looks like to be the salt and light of the earth and to be a light to the nations.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, well, that was the end of Ezra, which is, like you said, tied to Nehemiah was one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they split it up. Why did we say that was?
Well, when you turn to Nehemiah, it's like it starts a new part of the story. But originally it was written as one work, one scroll.
Yeah.
But
there's a lot. You notice right away, Nehemiah's, it's like, me.
Yes, right.
Like, so he wrote
It's written
Ezra.
from his perspective.
Right?
It's probably
someone just
not.
wrote it
He
from-
probably didn't write it. It's based on another book that was written from his perspective.
Okay.
It's his perspective, but I don't know if he wrote it.
Yep.
Okay, so and this kind of feels like similar to what has happened earlier. And as you got
Yes.
this guy with the king, and
Yep.
It's like happening
our third
again.
time. It's like the third parallel story.
yep,
Yeah, different perspective. Which one thing that I thought, that stood out to me in these first couple chapters was just that there are these parallel stories, like you're saying, but they're also a little bit different. So, I think a lot of times when we're reading this part of Nehemiah, we're focusing on how he was grieving for his people. He sought God in prayer, and then he asked for the king to do something. And just think about how different that is from what we saw in Ezra. That these kings just decided on their own and did it. And we talked about how part of what we're reading here is that God is sovereign, that He's moving through these kings of other nations in lots of different ways to move His story along. But just like the difference between sometimes it's God just doing it, and sometimes we get to participate in it through prayer and through obedience. But it's both, it's both things happening.
yeah. And I think the relational equity there, because what was his relationship to
was
the
a
king? He's a
cupbearer.
cupbearer.
Mm-hmm.
That like, I don't want to say like
Joseph and
he's
Esther.
yeah, and like he's endeared himself to this
Mm-hmm.
authority in a way where like he was able to recognize his sadness, and he didn't like.
Yeah.
It wasn't like him manipulating. He's like kind of like a humble guy, and like clearly the king
Yeah.
had some affinity for their relationship enough to like be like, yeah, dude, if you need to go. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
need these
Yeah.
letters.
I mean,
to
he's
the governors,
working
I'm
in the
gonna do-"
government and he's just doing a good job and has this real, authentic relationship
Yeah.
with someone in power. I mean, really, for us vocationally, it's good to remember, right? I mean, you don't have to be a priest or you
Yeah.
don't have to be someone appointed in, the Israel's system. He was, in the secular world doing his job, and God used him in these mighty, really beautiful ways.
Yeah, and he was practicing rhythms of, praying, fasting. I mean, so like he was like a man of God, but it
Yeah.
would seem that was the
In another kingdom,
yeah.
I mean,
They hadn't all gone back yet.
No.
Only
No, they
some
hadn't all
Never.
gone back. No.
Yeah.
And another distinction here is Nehemiah's story is going to be about the wall around Jerusalem, whereas what we read previously was more about the temple itself.
Yeah. Yep. Well, it was the temple, and then what's this? Sorry. Going back to like the
Going back in the
but
very
the Bible
beginning.
Project. There was like 3 movements. This is the third one.
Going back,
Yeah.
the return of the exiles, and then the building of the temple, and then the building of the walls.
Well, but after the temple was built, who it was it Ezra that came back and was, or who was it that came
Zerubbabel?
back? Yeah, that was
Yeah.
like, hey, now we got to like learn the laws
Yeah.
and like kind of teach them. So, okay, what else in 2?
Back in 1
sorry,
though,
1.
when he is praying to Yahweh before he talks to the king, he says in verse 8, "Remember the word that you commanded your servant Moses, saying, if you're unfaithful, I will scatter you among the peoples. But if you return to me and keep my commandments and do them, though you're outcasts in the uttermost parts of heaven, from there I will gather them and bring them to the place that I have chosen to make my name dwell there." And there's this interesting, I felt like this week, thread of remember, Lord, your promise. Remember what you said. And it's not that Nehemiah's actually having to cause the Lord to remember. It's for his own sake. He's like remembering himself, God's goodness, God's promise, God's faithfulness, and that God did say, if my people turn against me, they will be scattered, but I will bring them back. And if you want a little more bonus reading, you can go to Deuteronomy 4, verses 25 to 31, and that is a retelling of the law that Moses gives to the people before they go into this land originally. And it's these very words. It's like the Lord says, if and when you turn against me, I will scatter you. I'll do it by my own hand. And it's actually by the hand of the Assyrians and Babylonians and all that. But he says, but I will never forget my promise to Abraham and to Moses. I will maintain a people. So all those little footnotes that are in your Bible, they're there for good reason to help you go back and find that place and see. So I would say hold on to that as we keep talking, because just the faithfulness of God through this is what stands out to me this week.
Yes, and just like, again, remember where we are in the story, because that's what we're doing this year. Because a lot of times people read verses like this and they, think it's talking about the United States, which there's applications you can pull from it, right? Like, we should always be repenting and returning to God, and he's faithful when we do. But this is about the nation of Israel, and it's about their exile, and then them returning to the land and the promise of those specific people. So just good to remember whenever we're working through it.
Pull the right thing out.
Yeah.
And bring it to today. Apply the right thing.
Yeah. So, we jump. Can we keep?
Yeah, we can keep going.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. No, it's good. The wall.
Yep.
Maybe because I think when I at the end I was like, okay, what's the big deal with the wall? Like, I get practically it's like, okay, it helps bring safety, or it was a symbol of hey, we've we've conquered their kingdom. But was there some significance culturally of the wall around all this? Why the need to rebuild it?
I brought something.
Yay.
Back to another one. So this is the Then and That.
Brought to you
Then
by
and Now
Rose Publishing.
Sponsored by Rose Publishing. All right. So here is a picture of Jerusalem, and this is in let's see. This is the time of Solomon.
Yeah.
So the shape that the wall had, and remember, now when the Babylonians came in, they didn't just tear down the temple, they tore down the wall,
Yeah.
which is their ability to protect themselves.
Right.
And
Autonomy.
It's autonomy. And also not just having a wall, but that there were gates. So that controlled who comes in and who goes out. And they're able to not police maybe police those, but like to know who's coming and going.
Yeah.
And so safety is the primary thing. Let's see what I was going to say. Also, this has really good maps of where the Assyrians came from, Babylonians. You can see all that fun stuff that we like to look at. But here is the shape of the city later in the time of Jesus. And somewhere between what it looked like in Solomon's day and what it looked like in Jesus' day, we don't have like a map. Oh, you've got a good one in your Bible.
Yeah, I was just looking at this one.
That just gives you a picture of why the wall is important. People lived outside the wall, but you had safety. They would close the gates at night.
That's where all these sieges happened outside of the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you have people that want to take over, they have to get past your wall. And if you have no wall, they can just walk right in anytime.
So it was important for them to have a wall.
It was important for them to have a wall. And again, remember, like Rachel said earlier, this is focusing kind of on the ethnic story of the people of Israel, and they're trying to maintain this remnant, to maintain their history as a people. So they need some protection for that.
Yeah, and it's not like a wall. Like when I think about it, it's like it just like crumbled down, but the materials are still there. Basically, that's why he was only asking for timber and stuff to fix the gates, because gates are made of wood. You set it on fire, it burns down. You got to replace that. But assuming all the rocks, you just got to stack them back upright.
Yeah, you can. There are archaeological sites all over the Near East right now where they can find not just where a city was, but they can see where the wall was because it's still there. It's just fallen over.
Yeah.
That they're going to tear it down and leave the rubble.
Yeah. So
You can see parts of the original wall if you go to Jerusalem. It's
the original wall, like this, like the wall before this,
Yeah.
before they, wow.
parts of it.
Maybe
stuff-
we need
'cause they
maybe
didn't-
we need a
Old city.
podcast
Well,
strip.
Well, because
I know,
they
right?
didn't,
I
they
was just
didn't, they didn't rebuild the original wall. This is just a smaller portion.
Well,
of
it's
it,
just
right?
it's just changed throughout their history,
Yeah.
but you can actually see these parts of it that are really part of the original wall.
Yeah.
And you can see, especially if you're there, because again, I mean, we have maps, and it's very hilly too, and so you need a wall because you have to protect in lots of different ways because we live in Houston and it's like flat.
Right.
But
In some ways, it's a retaining wall
yes,
for your foundations and things. I mean, you can see right here in this picture along this valley,
Yeah.
right?
Thank you, Rose Publishing. Which I guess, I got this one in here too. So in the ESV Study Bible. But yeah, I wanted to talk about that just because it's like why the
cares?
importance. Okay, so they're fixing wall, and it seems like God is like uniquely working in a way for this specific purpose. So there is some greater
oh yeah.
thing happening.
Well, they're trying to return back to who they were, and that was being God's people. They would try to return a right worship. They rebuilt the temple because that's God's presence with them. And they need a wall to maintain their identity and their place, to be God's people in his place. So it's really all those themes that we've been hitting on throughout of it. The wall and the temple and the law are all really important.
Yeah. And so that's why I said this thread kind of carried through for the week for me, even in chapter 4 when they face the opposition and mocking from others, that the Lord seems to be blessing their work, right?
Yeah.
It's because they're his people in the place. They have his provision and his protection. Again, we start to see that because the Lord even confuses the plans of those who want to disrupt what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's like this like hint of the promise showing back up. It's almost like a remnant, not just a remnant of the people, but a remnant of the promise continues.
And Nehemiah was a cupbearer. He's not a mason.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's a guy, an unlikely
He's a leader.
person being used for God's purpose.
Yeah. It always is. It always seems to be someone unlikely that God, who is faithful and humble before God, who God really allows to participate in these ways with him.
Yeah. So he gets there, he does some sneaking around at night just to see what he's working with. and then ultimately gets to work. There's some opposition
Yeah.
to which sorry,
No, go ahead.
no, you go.
Well, I just, I think part of this week and really the past few weeks is you can be humble and faithful and obedient to God, and He can be with you, and good things can be happening, and there's still going to be opposition.
Yeah.
And I just think that's important for us to remember too. Is we can be doing God's will, and we can be fully surrendered to Him, and there's still going to be suffering. And there's still going to be opposition. And it doesn't mean that God has left or that we're not being faithful. It just means that that is the broken world that we live in, because we see that over and over too.
Yeah. I was going to probably skip too far ahead. That's why I was like, you go, because I'm going to end up laying in this thing pretty soon, probably. Yeah, I mean, I think all in all, if you as you read through, I mean, there's like all these different things that are happening here. But when you get to the end, and maybe I'm trying to think of what else I had in here these different times. How fast it ended up happening, and that like the other people were like, oh man, something like they're gonna end up rising up. It's like they have all this memory and this history of like God showing up and working ways. It's like, how did this little army end up beating all these people, or how did it's like, God clearly God's at work.
Chapter 6, verse 16. When all our enemies heard of it, all the nations around us were afraid and fell greatly in their own esteem.
Yeah.
For they perceived that this work had been accomplished with the help of our God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fear is there. But
remember, that was one of the major points of God rescuing them from Egypt back to our Exodus. It was so that the nations would see what God had done and know that He was really God.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you go.
I was just going to say, we skipped over an important part in chapter 5, I think, which gives us
I was going to
a picture that the threat isn't just from outside. The threat is also still within. The people with power are oppressing the poor among them.
Yeah.
And it's not good. It's not good that Israel's back to the same old brokenness.
Yeah, it's a bunch of wives and kids. What did we read about in Ezra? That's what happens when you send out a bunch of
right.
And I get they were working, but it was only 52 days, so it's like that it took. So it's not like years of these men aren't providing and these. But
but there were patterns of those with power and influence. Man, I'm in the chair that's sinking again. We got to throw this chair away.
Okay,
there it goes.
I was sort of like,
patterns of those with power and the ability to oppressing those that can't defend themselves. And so you have now the oppressed crying out. It's like, this is not. We can't live this way. And so that's when Nehemiah gets upset and.
Which is why I had this one thing in 13 where I was like, that's like kind of weird. Like I had to stop and reread it a couple times about like the curse, and he shook the fold of his garment.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know the history of like what that probably meant something culturally. Like if you shook the fold of your garment, like.
Yeah, I mean, remember, prophets, they sort of illustrate something and that seems like in weird ways, but I mean, he's saying he shook his garment, he's like, may God do this to you.
Yeah.
Like, whenever you're like, he's like, that is what he's doing. He's like, God is going to do this to you from his place and his presence. And so you're going to be scattered like this dust.
Yep. I don't know. It was just like a weird, anyway.
I mean, it's just, again, like they can have the temple, they can have the wall, they can remember the law, and it still doesn't matter if their hearts aren't turned to God and they're not trying to follow Him and love other people well. They still are missing that. They think that it's only about a wall and a temple, but it's really about their hearts. That's always what God asks of them. It's not sacrifice, it's their fully surrendered heart. Yeah.
And that's why I appreciated later on in 6, even when you have this whole thing of where, this kind of, again, this opposition to Nehemiah, and they come in like, hey, we got to hide you because they're going to come get you. We got to take you into the temple. And he said, should such a man as I run away? And what man such as I could go into the temple and live? Like, he's humble enough, recognize
Yeah.
like, dude, he still has a proper, I guess, view of his your chair. Sorry,
I know, man. It's just sinking as I sit here.
Okay, and then we end in 6, and the wall's finished.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think. Like maybe I don't know why. Maybe because it's not like some supernatural thing. There were a lot of people doing it, but 52 days to rebuild something that seems so prestigious or great. It's like, well, that's cool, but it only took 52 days. Couldn't have been that bad.
Yeah, well, that's why I think it, like you just said, it's everyone realized it's with the help of God.
Yeah.
It was miraculous.
Yeah. So we get to the end of a week like this and wonder, what am I supposed to take away from this? What is the truth that's there that still matters today? Is it somehow America's like Israel? Probably not. It's more, I tend to go toward, what does this tell me about who God is? What does this tell me about him that can shape my life today? And it's his faithfulness, his goodness, so that regardless of what's happening in my life, if I ask myself the question, like, does God still love me? Does he still have a plan for me? Any of that? The answer is wrapped up first in who he is, and then second in my response to who he is. And for me this week, Psalm 25 was on my mind. So Psalm 25 was written by David, who at many points in his life probably asked, like, is God done with me? Have I messed up too much? So I want to read a couple verses from Psalm 25, if that's okay.
Do it.
All right. So Psalm 25, verses 4 and 5, David's prayer is, make me to know your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth and teach me. You are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long. And then he says something this is why this came to mind for me. Remember your mercy, O Lord, and your steadfast love, for they have been from of old. Remember not the sins of my youth or my transgressions. According to your steadfast love, remember me for the sake of your goodness. It's not like he actually has to say, God, remember that you're good. Remember that you're merciful and faith. Like this is for him. He's saying, like, I remember, Lord, that you're this way. And he's so confident in God's faithfulness and goodness that he can answer the question, does God still love me? Does he still have a plan for me? Is he, what's happening here? And I don't know, Psalm 25.
Yeah.
So good.
You can subscribe to receive additional resources to help you study the story of Scripture at clearcreekresources.org. We'll see you next week.